Bitcoin holding steady at 8,800. And we're holding steady when I'm joined by my partner, Frank Morano, and our good friend, Jadan Horyn, joins us right now. He's a conservative commentator and contributor to Metropolitan Magazine. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hello, Jaden. Hey, John.
So, Jadan, I like, Texas is back in business, Georgia's back in business, and it sure looks like people want to get back to work. But I guess the big question that you had was, what if everybody opens and no one comes?
Yeah, I really think that is the open question here. If we reopen, will they come? Will customers, will consumers, will people go to retail establishments, restaurants? Will they go to entertainment venues? And I think that is, it's a really open question. With 25% capacity, I don't know how any business could make money when most stores in the United States are predicated on volume. Volume is what drives sales. Sales is what drives underlying numbers. And I don't understand the economic 25% capacity and around to make a profit. I don't understand the 25% capacity in a retail store being able to utilize their floor space adequately to get a profit with bringing their employees back on, their electricity is on, they're paying all their bills. It seems to me that, our policymakers are not thinking this through. There really needs to be some form of credit to ensure businesses do not fail during these phased reopenings because their expenses will far outweigh their revenues.
Yeah, and for some reason, I'm having this vision of my head of James Earl Jones stepping into the picture and being like, "We built it, and they didn't come." you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do have states after all. And we had Joe Ganascoli yesterday on from The Sopranos, and before he became a famous actor, he was a chef, and we were talking about especially on the restaurant front. If most restaurants need like 90% capacity, and they need to turn over their tables at least 2 times in a night. At 25%, there's not enough time in the day to turn over the tables enough to be self-sufficient. So I think a lot of restaurants are, frankly, dead.
Yeah, yesterday I'm
Frank.
down here in Florida, and I went out to lunch. To restaurants reopened. It was at 25% capacity. The tables were spaced, roughly 10 feet apart. And I talked to the owners, and they said, "Look, we're reopening because we want to provide an outlet for people, and we want to provide hope. But will we get the numbers to justify the expense? That's an open question. And if that's here in Florida where they're reopening and they are attempting to get customers, I don't know how it's going to happen, in other states where they don't really have the volume potential, one, and two, where this was an outdoor restaurant, right? So the risk of contamination for, consumers and people that are coming, they feel a little safer, right? You don't need to wear a mask. There's definitely fresh air. There's less risk of someone sneezing and you breathing in their COVID. Whereas if you're inside in Minnesota, I don't know if people are going to feel the same way. So I think you're entirely right.
Jaden, well, let me ask your view of how this will affect elections and campaigning for the next 6 months. Now, some states like New York are just simply canceling their elections. The governor canceled 6 special elections and the Democratic primary for president here in New York. But other states are moving forward. New Jersey, I know, is pursuing some sort of all mail-in ballot, which has raised a lot of concerns about fraud. There are a lot of people wondering about the possibility of Donald Trump never being able to do one of these rallies again that he was so famous for. I'm curious, what do you think this means to the nature of campaigning and kind of the election results that this is likely to produce?
Yeah, I think we're living a really interesting time, right? People had always speculated that sometime in the future, in a undefined time, there would be such thing as digital campaigning, and that the face to face would be less important in politics. And everyone always poo-pooed it and said, politics is the business of people, so that'll never happen. And here we are in 2020, and it looks like most of our campaigning is going to have to be done impersonally. It's going to have to be done with digital advances, and I think I likely right. There will not be mass rallies for President Trump. There likely will not be campaign style rallies where people that are kissing babies and shaking hands on the part of really any candidate. And I think there are definitely real
We lost him.
concerns about, the assets for digital campaigning. Are they deployed correctly? And then two, how the government is safeguarding our privilege in voting and ensuring that every vote counts, and at the same time not opening it up to mass abilities of fraud, which with mail-in voting is certainly there. Some states have mastered it, like Washington, but in the states where it hasn't been implemented, we know for a fact that the architecture is not there to make it happen. And if states can't implement unemployment and get that through, how can we trust that they're going to be able to count voting when instead of having 100,000 votes come in, they're going to have 10 million mail-in votes come in? The architecture is not there. So we want to talk about it hypothetically, but the reality is if it comes, government's likely to mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like anything we charge the government with doing, and there's need for technological upgrades, it's a total disaster. I mean, we saw in the PPP program, I saw it myself firsthand. We put our application in about 3 days before they started accepting applications, and day after day after day, we were getting told by the bank that the Fed had not upgraded their systems, and the Fed system and the SBA system were crashing. So I don't know how they think they're going to all of a sudden count. We'll probably have a lot more participation, and it probably leaves a lot more up for discussion on whether the outcome is correct.
Yeah, I think, people need to have faith that when the government creates these programs or, passes new laws, that the governmental architecture is there, that the infrastructure is in place to execute it, because all good programs will not serve their purpose if the people that need them can't get them. I mean, that's basic governance 101. And, our small businesses need these loans. Certainly, if we're going to do mail in voting, we need to be able to count it. We need security. We need fraud protection. But right now, I don't have faith that they'll be able to do it, because so far across these 50 United States, not a single state has managed their unemployment, and the federal government has not adequately managed PPP. And because of that, how can we expect them to safeguard our elections?
Jaden, let me ask you about the results in the big election that's coming up this year. You have President Trump, who for the last 3 years has enjoyed a very robust economy and understandably has had staked his whole reelection on that, even saying before large crowds of Wall Street folks, you may not like me, but if you want to see your 401k keep going in the right direction, you're going to have to vote for me. Now that President Trump doesn't have that strong economy to run on, what do you see this election turning upon? What are the biggest issues he needs to hit? And if you were a Biden advisor on the other side, what were the biggest issues he would be hitting?
I mean, right now, what the Trump administration needs to be messaging on is that this economy needs to be rebuilt. America needs to be rebuilt. And in order to do that, you need a businessman to rebuild the economy. It has crashed. Only he can rebuild it to what it was before. That needs to be their messaging. If I were the Biden people, I would talk about competence. I would talk about the fact that the Trump administration has bungled pretty much the delaying and the output of the programs that the people need, and because of that, they cannot be counted on to build the economy back up. They're two separate messages, but they're both salient. And I don't think Democrats have been hoping for a recession. They've been hoping that they could once again blame another Republican for the economy going down. And unfortunately, they lost that major talking point. So this is a wash in terms of this recession, this potential second Great Depression, and instead it becomes.
All right, we lost Jaden Horyn's audio, but Jaden, thank you so much. Jaden's one of our closest friends. He's been with us from the very beginning.